was talking with my wife this morning about this study, and we both agreed the topic of getting out of the boat has probably been the title for thousands of Sunday morning sermons. The primary message for these sermons centered on the actions of two sets of brothers who responded to Jesus' call to follow him by leaving their nets at once. The immediacy aspect has often been highlighted, and, when viewed from Mark's narrative where very little backstory is seen, gives the impression that the brothers made this decision with very few data points to validate this rabbi. As the title of this presentation suggests, today I want to illuminate some of these data points by examining what the brothers saw in Jesus prior to this call. In parallel, we'll jump back in time and assess what prompted the Israelites to entrust their lives to Yahweh and make their radical move to escape Pharaoh and Egyptian captivity. Finally, we will revisit the brothers on the Sea of Galilee. A surface reading of Mark 1, 16 through 20, where we see Jesus walking by the lake and calling first Peter and Andrew, then James and John, to immediately follow him, may reduce this moment simply to their deep-seated need of having the ultimate purpose in life, seeking eternity for others. While not diminishing this aspect of Jesus' call, what can often be overlooked is the motivation beyond purpose that drove them to follow this rabbi and to engage in this calling others to follow. Choosing the Mark 1 passage as the starting point for fellowship may be problematic in that Mark's gospel is so brief. Mark's gospel was known for brevity, which aligned with his primary audience, those in the greater Roman Empire, who really were accustomed to short bursts of narration. Mark's gospel has been thought to have been written first and was used as a framework for both Matthew and Luke's gospels written later. That said, we have limited information regarding Jesus' interactions and travels found in the first 15 verses preceding this section. Mark 1 reads,
"As Jesus walked beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and his brother Andrew casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. 'Come, follow me,' Jesus said, 'and I will send you out to fish for people.' At once they left their nets and followed him. When he had gone a little farther, he saw James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John in a boat, preparing their nets. Without delay, he called them, and they left their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired men and followed him."
Just from this limited information found in this passage, Mark highlights characteristics of those desiring to become a follower of Christ, which include becoming like him and becoming fishers of men. Also referenced in this passage was the immediacy of the decision to follow, as seen in the wording "at once" and "immediately." The structure of Jesus' call identifies the focal point as "come follow me," and in so doing, I will make you fishers of men. One naturally subsumes the other. All these aspects are integral when a person is reflecting on whether to commit their lives to Christ or examining their present walk with him, really to see if they align with his calling. The main question to ask is what drove these brothers to immediately leave their boats, their profession, and to follow Jesus. Many focus on the aspect of having a purpose beyond our work or school, or getting married, or raising our families, or just enjoying retirement. That of assisting others to walk with Jesus and to have them enter eternity. Yet does purpose alone guarantee a lifetime of fellowship? I would suggest that the overwhelming care, concern, empathy seen in God through the ages and now through his Son was the primary impetus for following God and staying the course for the Israelites and for these fishermen and now for us. It's all about connection and relationship, or the possibilities thereof. Before we commit to any significant emotional relationship, we do our own set of analysis. Is this person interesting? Are they safe to converse with despite differences? Are they conversationally hospitable? Basically interested also in hearing you speak. Do they love others? Do they have a sense of humor? Or any other list of attributes important to you? I would never have expected Michaela to have said yes to my marriage proposal without first vetting my character. So God has also entered our worlds in some respects to be vetted. What he proposed to those brothers at the edge of the lake was an invitation to watch and discern his heart and his actions. He did not expect an irrational blind faith, which was proposed by the Christian philosopher Kierkegaard, but a faith in a promise-fulfilling God with whom the ancients such as Noah and Abraham rested their actions of fellowship. In this presentation, I want to speak towards this motivational emphasis by first examining the conversations and actions of Jesus seen by these two sets of brothers prior to this call in Mark. Then look at how God communicated empathy and trust to the Israelites who were held in bondage in Egypt prior to them exiting Egypt. Finally, we will transition to relooking at the word faith as translated allegiance and how it marries action to believe, a needed component to stepping out of the boat and fishing for men. Material I'm deriving this talk from comes from research from Aleph Beta and from Matthew Bates in his book Salvation by Allegiance Alone. Okay, first let's develop the chronology and place-based aspects that occurred with the two sets of brothers prior to what I'll term as call number 1. How much interaction did these brothers witness prior to the Mark 1 moment? We identify the time of that call occurring by simply referencing the linkage of that call to Matthew 4, verses 18 through 20, and with Mark 1 based on the parallels seen with the brothers. In both situations, they are currently fishing and washing their nets, and Jesus is walking by the Sea of Galilee. Prior to the call seen in Matthew 4, we're told of John the Baptist's arrest. With this moment, the Baptist arrest bookmark, we can see all the movements by Jesus prior to this event. We'll expand this call, number 1, as we've mentioned, in the Mark-Matthew moment to Jesus' call, which we'll call 1a, to confuse us all, found in Luke 5, verses 1 through 11. Here we find similarities with the call in Mark. However, there are differences that others note to give them pause as to viewing this call as separate. In Luke, Jesus is teaching rather than just walking, and the brothers are washing their nets from the previous night's work rather than fishing as seen in Mark. Also, the call in Mark 1, Jesus uses the future tense in the statement, I will make you fishers of men, where in the call seen in Luke, he states, from now on you will fish for men. Regardless of whether you believe these are two separate calls or not, the point is that Jesus spent considerable time through many miles of walking with these brothers before they made the radical move to follow him full time. The estimated distance and time through these documented travels was close to 5 months and upwards of 285 miles traveled. I need to mention that John's gospel can also be synced through chapter 4, verse 44, where John mentions Jesus' engagement in Nazareth, where he was rejected, which aligns with the Luke 5 call, where Nazareth moment precedes the call to follow. Okay, enough of all the calls. Here's a brief list of all the moments the brothers would have witnessed during this period. And you can see I'm not going to go through each one of them, but there's a number of them. The brothers had time to witness Jesus' interactions, yet of all of these, which moment might speak to them investing their lives with this rabbi? We'll return to this question later in part 2 of this topic. We will examine what characteristics of Yahweh might have resonated with Israel to entrust their lives to Yahweh while in the midst of Egyptian captivity.